All right, welcome back to BrainFLoTv, y'all. Let's get right into it. So, YNW Melly's lawyers are fighting tooth and nail to get him off. I mean, they are slinging everything at the walls to see what sticks. That's just my assumption or my how I see this whole thing. So, check it. Right now, YNW Melly's attorneys, they want Detective Moretti back on the stand. They want a new deposition for Detective Moretti, which means they can sit him back on the stand, have him back under oath, and question him again. But it's questions that they have already asked him, right? One of YNW Melly's attorneys says, I don't know what would show more corruption than an officer serving a search warrant when he knew that he was out of his jurisdiction, physically taking something from someone which he did not have the right to do because he was outside of his jurisdiction, and then asking another officer to commit perjury. This was Daniel Aronson, one of Melly's attorneys. Now, Assistant State Attorney Justin Griffiths said, at this point, there's no investigation, okay? He has already effectively been cleared by the Miramar Police Department. And what they now want to do is pontificate or speculate that maybe some charges will come down the road. But there's just simply no evidence supporting that. In other words, the Miramar Police Department is saying that Detective Moretti has already been cleared of all wrongdoings, and whatever questions that YNW Melly's attorneys had before, they asked it already, and those questions were already answered. So putting him back on the stand under another deposition is just not worth it. It makes no damn sense. The judge still has not made a final decision on whether or not there will be a new deposition from Moretti. Now, while they are accusing Moretti of serving a warrant outside his jurisdiction and actually collecting evidence that he had no right to be collecting, YNW Melly lawyers have gone ahead to file a second motion to dismiss this entire trial. Throw the case out. No second trial. Finito. Done. Melly goes home. And if you remember correctly, if you recall, the first motion to dismiss this trial was actually based on prosecutorial misconduct, right? Where they claimed that the lead prosecutor withheld, which is Kristen Bradley, withheld information that could have been beneficial to their first trial to the defense and Detective Moretti. So it's Moretti again. Detective Moretti trying to solicit a deputy to lie for him, which put the lead prosecutor in the hot seat since Kristen Bradley did not file the Brady notice and turn it over to the defense. That was the first one, why they filed it. Now, this second motion to dismiss this entire trial, this second motion, this one, apparently the defense, who is YNW Melly's lawyers, they hired their own experts to go through the evidence, particularly to go through cell phone data, Google Maps, locations, etc., metadata, through all the cell phone data, which they got from the cell phone carrier Sprint and T-Mobile. And how they got that? They got that through a subpoena. Now, all this info is, of course, shared by prosecution to the defense, as it is your constitutional right to have the evidence against the accused shared with your lawyer so that you can mount a proper defense. In other words, if you're accused of something and the state's going to take you to court and they claim they have evidence, they must share this same evidence with your attorneys so your attorneys know what's coming down the line so they can answer to it properly in court. That's just your constitutional right. So the experts were hired by Melly's lawyers. Basically, that expert is saying that some information seems to have been added to the original record. Now, adding parts and sections that were not originally there. So, what they're doing is they're basically accusing the state right now of adding information to the phone records or tampering with evidence is what this amounts to, right? So once again, the state is accused of wrongdoing. First, it was the prosecutorial misconduct with the Brady thing, and now it's the tampering with evidence by adding information to the evidence, to the original copies that was not on the original copies when it was given to them. Melly's lawyers claim to have contacted Prosecutor Kristen Bradley through email first. And Melly's lawyers said they asked her. They said, hey, what's up with this phone records? Because it doesn't look like it's the original. Some of it is not original. Are you aware of this? Kristen Bradley replied saying, maybe it was the drive. Maybe it was your computer drive that was corrupted. Maybe it was something wrong with the file. Maybe it was your computer distorted or something. That was her first time, they claim. Then they said that Attorney Liberty, another attorney for Melly, again contacted Bradley, this time face to face, and said to her she believes that the cell phone records were altered that you gave to us. What's up with that? This time she did it in person, and in writing on paper, they claim that Kristen Bradley replied in person saying, I gave you everything I had already, and you're not getting anything else. That's it. So they completed business with Kristen Bradley. Now remember, Kristen Bradley was removed from the case by the judge, not because she did anything wrong according to the attorney, but because if she is going to be called, or if there's a slight possibility of her being called to the stand during this trial, then she should not be the lead prosecutor on this case. And she was removed from the case, right? So she's off the case. Now, Alexandria Bukalu, a lot of people who listen to me say, man, you kill me the way you pronounce names or whatever. Listen, if you're that slow, I'm a multinational person. I've been around the world. I've lived in many different countries. My accent is from here, there, and some of everywhere. So please don't get stuck on the way I pronounce names. A lot of people with accents pronounce names differently. You know who I'm talking about, right? So Alexandria Bukalu, the new attorney that is on the prosecution, new prosecutor. The new prosecutor starts telling them, YNW Melly's lawyers, that the defense must have been provided with documents that were worked on by Miramar, not the originals. So if you look at this right here, why is the new prosecutor telling Melly's lawyers that, hey, the paperwork you have basically must have been worked on by the department? That kind of sums up exactly what they said to them. Hey, do y'all know that these papers are not the original? Because it has stuff on there that the expert says, cyber expert says, would not be on these types of paperwork. Y'all added some stuff to it. Right. So now the new prosecutor contacts them and says, y'all must have been handed some paperwork that was worked on by the Miramar department, not the originals. So what you have here is the prosecutor agreeing to Melly's lawyers' claims that were found by their own independent experts. This is not good. So where does this leave us? Okay, the question now is what? The question now is, where is the original documentation? Right? Surely they can just go back to T-Mobile, go back to Sprint, and request the originals or subpoena them to get the originals. These are my thoughts as I'm looking through this. Melly's lawyers, though, says that this is grounds for a dismissal of this whole case, simply because this altered document was presented in the first trial as an original, And on top of that, he said that there were several violations that went along with this in the first trial. So simply requesting the original and starting over as if nothing happened is basically too little, too late. Now, of course, most people are like, here they go, boy, they're trying everything. But for once, I kind of see what they're saying, even though I'll tell you in the end why I don't think this is going to lead to the judge actually throwing this case out. So they starts naming a few issues, right? His lawyers, YNW Melly's lawyers. And one of the issues is YNW Melly's lawyers said that, number one, this evidence was not in its original form when it was entered into evidence or admitted into evidence as it was when it was received by Miramar Police Department from the phone companies. In other words, they got it from the phone companies, they added some stuff to it, then they had it accepted into evidence to be used at the trial against him. In other words, they altered it. They added to it. Then they put it into evidence. It should have been non-admissible in the first place because it wasn't in its original form. Number two, they said a witness testified in court that it was in the same condition that at trial that it was handed to from the phone companies, and it was not. And they testified under oath that it was in its original form. And it wasn't, because somebody at the Miramar Police Department added to it. Number three, his lawyers pointed out that the same evidence was sent back to be reviewed by the jury as if it was an original document, and it wasn't. So the jury actually reviewed tampered evidence. So basically, we don't know if this did not sway some jurors against Melly when otherwise they would have voted for an acquittal instead of a mistrial. Now, if this record was not altered or tampered with, do you see their point? They're basically saying, look, y'all tampered with the evidence and then you gave it to the jury as if it was original, and the jury saw it, and we don't know. Maybe if you didn't tamper with it, the jury would have came back and said this is an acquittal, instead of coming back and saying this is a mistrial and now we got to go to trial again. So basically what happened was, number four, he says that the recipients or the receivers of this record is on record, and that person is Detective Moretti. He was the one that received the original documents from the phone companies. He subpoenaed to get them, and he got them. So any changes that was added to them at the Miramar Police Department most likely would have been done with his knowledge and his consent. So the lead detective is now being accused again. Remember, they already accused Detective Moretti of being outside of his jurisdiction, collecting evidence outside that he shouldn't have been collecting, and all this other stuff, right? So now he is being accused again of being the one to subpoena the phone companies, T-Mobile and Sprint, to get the phone records. And when they got to him, he signed for them, and then he tampered with them. This is what Melly's lawyers are saying. Melly's lawyers are also saying, in a case like this, both the lead detective and the lead prosecutor, which is Christine Bradley, who is now off the case, those two people have to work together to bring this to court. So lead detective, lead prosecutor, both corrupted. Both of them put their heads together and came up with a plan. They knew what they were doing. That's why they added stuff to the original phone records before putting it into, so they knowingly tampered with the phone evidence. This is what YNW Melly's attorneys are saying, right? Now, they went and did a list of stuff like hiding Brady material, covering up for a lying officer, giving less than candid testimony at a hearing, providing evidence in discovery proportioning to the original copy when in fact they had been tampered with, presenting tampered evidence to the jury. The state at every level acted in bad faith and attempted to mess up YNW Melly's due process. Everyone is supposed to have due process under your constitutional law. So basically, his lawyers are saying that since his due process rights were violated under the 14th Amendment were violated, his first trial, and under double jeopardy, you cannot try someone 2 times for the same crime or the same offense. So therefore, all charges should be dropped and this should be dismissed. And he should not be allowed to be tried again. Now, me bringing this to my audience at BrainFLoTv, I'll close this like this. Here's my question. Since Melly's lawyers are claiming that they added stuff to the original phone records, the question then comes is, what did they add to the phone records? Because sometimes if you're taking notes, right, and you have original printout paperwork, you might make a column on the side or put a header on it to remind you that this is what you need to talk about next, and number 1 needs to connect with number 4 or whatever. But does it change what the original shows? That's the question. They added a header. You know what a header is? Go and look up a letter header. What is a header? That's what they added to it. Now, was the header incriminating? Did the header change the credibility of the original material? In other words, if Miramar Police Department had not added a header and a column, would the original prove innocence of the accused? That's the real question. You just want to free him because they wrote on the same paper? Or did they write something on the same paper that was incriminating? They're going hard. They are going really, really hard for this dismissal. And they are pulling out all the punches. But again, I think personally that this is just them combing through everything with a fine-teeth comb and filing as many motions as they can to see which one sticks. And if all fails and they head to trial, if they lose at trial, get this. If they lose at trial, then when it's time for an appeal, they will have a strong case or strong grounds to appeal on. Lead prosecutor and detective are now accused of tampering with the phone records that they received from the phone company. Leave your comments in the comment section below. Tell me if you think that this is enough for the case to be thrown out. And do you think the judge is going to grant a dismissal? Or do you think that this is still basically throwing everything at the wall, seeing if it sticks? I'll catch y'all on the next video, and I'll meet you in this comment section below. Hit that subscribe button. It's BrainFLoTv. I'm out. Peace.